Never in history has a modern military. Iran had a modern military, a modern navy, a modern air force, modern air defenses, leadership, massive bunker. Never has a modern military been so rapidly and historically obliterated, defeated from day one with overwhelming firepower. The air campaign that we've conducted, that Israel's conducted alongside us, was one for the history books, truly. And it's because we have a president of the United States that when he sends his warfighters out to fight, he unties their hands to actually go out and close with and destroy the enemy as viciously as possible from moment one. And that's why
at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the 82nd Airborne Division is readying to send personnel and hardware to the Middle East. The unit, about 3,000 troops strong, functions as the division's quick response brigade, capable of reaching any location on Earth within 18 hours of receiving orders. The directive has arrived. The countdown has begun. Throughout the installation, thousands of paratroopers are assembling their equipment. In living quarters and marshalling areas, soldiers fill backpacks with uniforms, food supplies, and necessities. They service their M4 carbines, disassembling them, cleaning the bolt carrier assemblies, lubricating the components, putting them back together, and testing the action. Machine gun crews remove linked ammunition from storage containers and run the belts through their weapons to ensure proper feeding, then wrap the chains and store them in ammunition boxes. Extra barrels, maintenance tools. By first light, these troops must be aboard aircraft and airborne. As the soldiers organize inside the hangars, flight operations are already underway. Maintenance teams attend to the C-17 Globemaster III transports parked on the ramp. At the loading zone, loadmasters guide forklifts carrying supply pallets and military vehicles up the rear loading ramps into the cargo holds. Armored trucks, Humvees, and HIMARS rocket artillery systems are maneuvered inside and secured to the deck with chains. Up front, pilots activate the cockpit systems and conduct their pre-flight routines, navigation, radar, flight computers. Every system is verified before any soldier steps onto the loading ramp. The signal comes to the hangars. Time to depart. The troops collect their bags and individual weapons and stream out onto the flight line. Remember, when you're coming down and about to hit the ground, make sure you slow down, spread out. The C-17s sit ready with their rear ramps lowered. The soldiers proceed toward their designated transports carrying duffels and hard-shell cases. At the ramp, they place their gear onto the floor's integrated roller system. A soldier inside the hold arranges the bags tightly, compressing them together and securing cargo straps and tie-downs across the load to prevent any movement during the 14-hour journey. The troops board and settle into seats along the sidewalls and center sections. The atmosphere is relaxed. Some chat with one another, others exchange jokes, a few glance at phones one last time before stowing them. This isn't their first deployment, and for many, the process of boarding a C-17 feels as routine as stepping onto a city bus. First time? Looks like someone's got contraband medicine. The rear cargo door rises first, then the upper portion swings down and seals against the lower section, closing the aircraft tight and pressurizing the cabin. The power plants ignite, all four Pratt & Whitney fan engines winding up in sequence. The C-17 rolls to the runway, aligns, and powers forward. The massive transport rotates and ascends into the dawn sky. A half-day later, the initial C-17 lands at a Qatari military airfield. The instant the aircraft reaches the offload zone, the rear ramp lowers. Unloading commences without delay. HIMARS launchers fire up their engines, are freed from their deck restraints, and roll down the ramp directly onto the pavement. They bypass the airfield entirely. They proceed straight to their designated launch sites near the frontier. Armored vehicles trail behind them. Cargo pallets are extracted by forklifts. The operation moves at high speed. Aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, an aircraft carrier operating in regional waters, Marines are embarking onto helicopters for their own movement to Qatar. They climb into Sikorsky MH-60S, Nighthawks, and V-22 Ospreys stationed on the flight deck, full battle gear, rifles, armor plating, packs, ammunition. The helicopters rise in succession and head toward the Qatari shoreline. The Marines are being massed at this site to provide a swift reaction force, a substantial ground element stationed close enough to answer immediately should the situation intensify. The Marines touch down in Qatar and proceed directly to a camp previously set up by advance elements. Shelters are in place. Defensive positions are established. Communications are operational. The newly arrived personnel drop their equipment, receive a brief orientation, and assume their posts. Simultaneously, transport vessels offshore begin deploying amphibious assault vehicles into the sea. These are armored tracked platforms capable of operating in water and on land. While afloat, they are driven by water jets positioned at the rear of the hull, propelling them through the ocean at up to 8 knots. The hull remains watertight and buoyant, keeping the craft and its marine occupants above the surface. Upon reaching the shoreline, the water jets disengage and the vehicle switches to its tracks, advancing up the beach onto dry land like a standard armored personnel carrier. It holds up to 21 Marines plus their equipment and features a turret with a machine gun and grenade launcher. Following them, landing craft air cushion vessels exit the transport ships. These are sizable hovercraft that float on an air layer generated by huge fans at the stern. Each LCAC hauls multiple trucks, armored units, or up to 60 tons of supplies across the water at over 40 knots. They glide across the surface, throwing up seawater behind, and advance straight onto the beach without pausing. The bull ramp falls, and the cargo inside drives out onto the sand. Humvees, supply trucks, armored carriers, all ferried from vessel to coast in a matter of minutes. Numerous LCACs made multiple trips between the ships and the shore, moving vehicles and materials until the entire load was delivered. At the Qatari airfield, helicopter crews loaded ammunition belts into the feed mechanisms of their door-mounted M240 machine guns. The rounds were checked one by one, threaded through the action, and the charging handles were cycled. The weapons were made ready. The helicopters rose and started running patrol routes over the surrounding area, watching the skies and terrain for Iranian Shahed drones. If one appeared on their sensors or was sighted visually, the door gunners would fire and neutralize it before it could strike the personnel or the facility. The patrols operated without interruption, one helicopter heading back to refuel and rearm while another replaced it on station. The defensive ring was maintained constantly.